Yo, what's going on YouTube? It's your boy Light back with another YouTube video. In today's video, we're going to be doing another one of these DCMCU concepts, or replacing the MCU with the DCU, part number 32. So in today's video, we're going to be replacing Spider-Man No Way Home with Flash 3. So essentially, this is going to round out the Barry Allen Flash trilogy of sorts. So essentially, this movie is gonna be groundbreaking for this new DCU of sorts. It's gonna be pretty big. Personally, this is one of my favorite videos to work on so far. I actually like this concept a lot, and hopefully this happens one day. This would be a pretty sick concept. So yeah, if you rewind to back when I did my Far From Home video, you would remember me saying that I wanted originally that to be like a part 1 and this would be part 2. So essentially, this is going to dwell a lot off of Far From Home, similar to the way No Way Home is with Far From Home. So yeah, continuing off that idea, essentially this is going to take place, of course, after that whole Infinity War and Endgame thing. So essentially now Barry has gone like a bit stronger and everything. He's fully tapped into the Speed Force, like he understands it like way more. This is like a very strong Barry Allen we're seeing. And essentially, uh, he's getting questioned. He's wondering like what's really going on with the Speed Force and everything. So that's when we see him actually turn to essentially the Justice League Dark, who are literally like Barry, like what's going on and stuff like that. And he turns to Doctor Fate, and essentially that's like the first introduction to say the least. He's literally like what's going on, like, and then that they briefly get interrupted, and actually we get our introduction into Gorilla Grodd, who essentially comes for like a little bit before middle of the movie, and essentially Gorilla Grodd is trying to take over the city and stuff with an army full of gorillas, and Flash essentially has got to stop it. And then we see Wally, who aids him in stopping Gorilla Grodd. So essentially, they all come and they stop it, and that is when we end up seeing essentially once Gorilla Grodd is essentially defeated, we end up seeing essentially a portal open, and we see Jay Garrick Flash come out of the thing, picking up after that post-credit scene back in JSA, or Justice Society of America. Jay Garrett literally steps out of the portal and he's like, "What's going on?" And then Impulse, we see this kid. He comes out and he's like, Impulse comes out, and then he's like, "Grandpa?" And then yeah, we end up seeing the other we see Impulse and we see Jay Garrett Flash come out of the portals and essentially be like, what the hell is going on? Who are you? Well, essentially that's what Jay Garrick says, because Jay Garrick is from another Earth, and then Impulse is essentially from the future. But here's where things go a little choppy and stuff. Jay Garrick actually never meant to, but essentially Impulse did actually mean for this to happen. He ran into the past and was literally like, something happened in the past around this time, like something bad is about to happen or something. And yeah, then Barry decides to like take all of them back, and essentially take them all back. He takes Impulse with them, and essentially they go and they see Doctor Fate about this and see what's going on. And then there's another report on the news. It's like somebody's going around murdering people and stuff, and Flash is like, "Stay back, figure out." And he's like, "Wally, help these guys figure out what's going on. I'll be back." So essentially, Flash runs as fast as he can to like essentially a dark alleyway, and he sees a bunch of like dead people like all over the place, and he's like, "What the hell?" And he's like, "This is a work of a speedster," and he's like, "Eobard Thawne," and then that's when Eobard Thawne reveals himself. And if you remember in Far From Home, you would remember that Flash actually snapped his neck to kill him because he's like, he can't be kept alive. So he actually snapped his neck and killed him. And that's where it reveals Eobard Thawne is literally like, Flash, you killed me, but yeah, I can't be truly dead because I'm stuck in the Speed Force, and I'm stuck in this loop right now, and you will never stop me, Flash. I'll continue to make your life like a living hell, murder people, practically just be an absolute menace, essentially. So that's exactly what happens, and that's when we end up seeing essentially Reverse Flash's beat the ever living. Like, he just kicks Barry Allen's ass. He beats him up badly, and that's when we see that happen. And then Flash is like, "I've had enough of you, Thawne," and then he literally smashes him right, like he grabs him, beats him up and stuff, and then that's when we see Reverse Flash essentially zoom out of the forest, and essentially that's when we see that happen as he zooms out, and then we end up seeing like the Flash be like, "How's that even possible?" And that's when he turns again back to the Justice League Dark. That's when they finally have a talk about the multiverse and what it could have happened based off the previous events of the second movie. Actually, I highly recommend watching that concept if you want to. If this is confusing you, I highly recommend watching that though. Uh, should have said this at the start of the video. Sorry about that. Um, so yeah, that essentially all happens, and it's revealed like with all that mess what happened, and Thawne not being in the right time and Barry murdering him technically before he was born and stuff. It's like confusing up the pair. It's essentially making a paradox. So it's causing a whole chain of events essentially to happen, and the world is essentially coming down bad and stuff like that. That's why Jay Garrick ended up getting sucked into this world, or put in this world just randomly like that, instead of Jay Garrick just like essentially chilling it. Like it's essentially uh, the speedsters were essentially sent here instead. So we end up seeing that happen, and that is when it's revealed. Along with the fact that other Flashes are essentially coming to this Earth, there's also going to be other like villains and people with that don't have good interests. So that is essentially when we end up seeing um, a character known as Hunter Zolman or Zoom. He comes out of a portal essentially happening. So that happens. We end up seeing essentially a bunch of yellow speedsters, essentially like an army of Eobard Thawns to be exact. Uh, but they all kind of look like droids and stuff. So essentially, he's summoning an army of sorts. So that does happen. We see all that coming up. Uh, that's when it's like, Justice League Dark is literally like, you need to stop this man. He's going on a menace, and that's when we realize Reverse Flash is essentially going back in time and taking like multiple copies of his character to essentially try and wreak havoc on the city and kill the Flash essentially. But he doesn't ever wants to kill the Flash on purpose. And Barry knows exactly what's gonna happen, and that's just gonna lead right down the middle. And that's where we learn essentially Barry Allen is gonna have to try and stop this. So that's what happens. We end up seeing essentially these four Flashes of sorts, or Impulse, Jay Garrick, Barry Allen, and Wally West all kind of team up. They all go and get ready to fight, and we essentially see that happening. Uh, Dr. Fate is literally then he tells Flash like, you need to get some special uh, something special to essentially close all of this, and you need to stop this from ever happening. So that's essentially what he's trying to do. And that's where we end up seeing that happen. Uh, as a huge final battle, and Barry's trying to figure out what's going on, but everybody else is able to essentially fight off these speedsters and whatever, so they're able to do it. And that's when it's like revealed like there's no real stopping the Reverse Flash. You can't really stop him. There's nothing to stop him with. So that is when Barry Allen's like, I'm sorry guys. In a heartfelt moment, he knows what he has to do. So he tells Wally to look after everything, like look after Central City, look after Iris. And then he's like, Jay, it was a pleasure meeting you. hopefully you'll be able to go back to your own world. Same with Impulse. So that's exactly what they're thinking. And then we end up seeing that happen. And yeah, essentially that happens. And Barry essentially grabs most of those speed drops, puts them in a middle, and essentially tries and creates a new kind of portal to send all of them back to their places. And essentially he grabs Reverse Flash, beats him up bad, and then throws him in. He's like, Barry, what the hell are you doing? You can never stop me. That's when we see Barry run the fastest he can, so fast that it literally kills him. And we end up seeing him flash out of existence into the Speed Force, essentially therefore by essentially killing him. Yeah, so he's gone, and that's what we end up seeing. We end up actually seeing the death of Barry Allen, essentially. So yeah, Barry Allen ends up essentially dying, and then yeah, after that we end up seeing Dr. Fate is able to essentially aid in sending back Jay Garrick to his essentially sending Jay Garrick back to his own time or his own world, and then he was about to send Impulse back, but then Impulse explained why he's here and he wants to essentially aid in helping and stuff, and then he's like time works differently, so they spare Impulse, they let Impulse stay, so Impulse does stay back, and that's when it's revealed. We end up seeing this happen. Impulse essentially becomes the new Kid Flash, and then Wally essentially takes up the mantle of Flash, and that's how the movie kind of ends. So yeah, I highly think that they will be making another Spider-Man movie, so there'll probably be more concept art for this series and stuff. I do have plans for this. Of course, I liked working on the Flash stuff, and then Wally West, of course, is now going to be the new Flash in this universe, so that's gonna be interesting to see. But anyways, that's pretty much it though. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next video. Peace.